I'm starting a new project, I want to make sure that I start with a folder. That way I can put all my images in there, and that way I won't lose them. And so, if I want to come back and make edits to the project later, I can find where they are. So I'm going to make a new one, Self-Portrait 2. And I'm going to basically follow the same format, but I'm going to go a little bit faster just so we can do a kind of quick demo just to recap and see if you guys have any questions. So I need some images first. So I'm going to go back to Chrome. And I'm going to go back to the OpenLab site and go under Topics and go to Digital Imaging. And if I scroll down here, this is where I'll find those image search engines for Creative Commons licensed images. And so I'll choose the first one. I'll just go to creativecommons.org. And so I'm going to make kind of a similar composite. So I'm going to look for maybe a nature scene. Last time I did kind of like a bird in like a little beach scene. Oh, there's no images for nature. That's kind of interesting. Okay, I'll just try beach again. Okay, get a lot of results for beach. Some of them don't really look like they're on a beach, but that's okay. Oh, I guess this is the nature results. Okay, maybe the page is lagging a little bit. Let's try the search again. I don't love these, so I'm going to try this one, pexels.com. So let's try this one again. So I'm going to look for a beach. Okay, so these are some nicer results. Let's find something that looks cool. Maybe I'll work with this surfing one. That's kind of cool. So I'll find this, and I want to look at the info. And so the license says free to use, no attribution required. So I don't have to attribute, but I do want to save where I got this from. So I'm going to download it. And then I'm going to go back to the Finder. So I'm going to click on the Finder, and it's going to be in my Downloads folder. So I can click in Chrome and go to Show in Finder, and that's actually going to open up my Downloads folder. And I should see my two Finder windows next to each other, so I can just drag this over here. And it has a really long name, so I can just change this to beach if I want to make it shorter. And then I also want to save a link to this. So I'm going to go back to Chrome and get a link here. And I'm going to open up a text document. So I'm going to go to Text Edit. And I'm just going to paste the link here. So this is my beach photo. And I'm just going to save this in my project folder just so I can find it later. So I'll call this my references. And it's a TXT file. Oh, it's making me do rich text. Rich text is fine. It doesn't really matter what you save this as. I don't like rich text, so what I'm going to do is just hit Command-Shift-T to convert this to basic text. That's just what I prefer, but it doesn't really matter that much. And so this is my references.txt. And so I've got my beach photo. Maybe I'll put like a cat on the end of the surfboard or something like that. So let's find a cat. A lot of cat photos. This one's pretty funny, so I'll grab this one. And let's look at the info. It says free to use. Doesn't tell me the attribution details. Oh, here we go. No attribution required. So this is another one where I can just download it for free. And so I'll go back to my Finder and open up Show in Finder again. So there's my cat image. And so I'll drag this over here. And so both of these images are really large. There's a lot of pixel data, but I'm going to make a smaller image and just size them down. So I'm going to rename this one. So I'm just hitting Enter. I'm just going to name this cat.jpg. That'll make it easier to find. And so now my downloads folder is empty. I can get rid of that. And I want to save this link again. So I'm going to go to Chrome and go to the URL bar and copy. And then go back to my text document and type in cat photo. So I want to save those so I can grab them later if I need to, if I lose them or want to reference them. And so now I have all the resources I need to get started. So I'm going to close this and close this and close this. And now I'm going to open up Photoshop. Okay, any questions so far on any of that? All right, so I've got Photoshop open, and I'm just going to go through quickly. For some reason, when I double click, it's supposed to fill up the window, but maybe if I click on this plus, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to make a new document, so I'll click on New File, and I'm just going to set the number of pixels. I'm going to do a square image this time, so I'm going to do 1024 by 1024. That's a pretty good resolution to start at. You might, if you're doing something that you want to be really high res, you're going to want to go larger than that. You might do like 2048 by 2048. But I think 1024 by 1024 is good enough for this demo. And so this looks good. If you have artboards on, that doesn't really make a big difference. I don't really use the artboard, so I usually turn that off. So if you see the difference, if you see artboards in your layers, where you don't see it in mine, that's probably why. And it's fine to use it. It doesn't really make a big difference, but I like to turn it off. So I'm going to click Create. So I've got my canvas, my blank canvas. Your workspace probably looks different. It's probably the essentials. Let me see if I can reset essentials. Okay, so that's probably what yours looks like. My resolution is kind of low because I'm working on the projector. So what I'm going to do is just drag this guy with my layers and my channels and put it right here so I have a little more room to work with that. And then I'm going to add in my images. So I'm going to make this area a little bit smaller. And so there's a few different ways I can do this. The easiest way is just to drag them. So I'm going to go back to the Finder, make this window a little bit smaller, and I'm going to take my beach image first and drag it here. And so remember, it's going to give me this blue like transformation settings. And so I can zoom out a little bit. I'm hitting Command minus to zoom out. And I could rotate it. Maybe I could do like a weird upside down picture, or like a left and right picture, or sorry, vertical picture. But mostly what I want to do here, I'm going to undo those changes, is just make it fit the size of my canvas. So I'm just going to drag those. And I have a lot of resolution in this image. The image is much bigger than my canvas, so I can actually zoom in a lot if I want to. And it won't, it won't distort the pixels. But depending on how big your image is, you may start to see a little bit of blurriness or distortion if you zoom in that much. So once I have it how I like it, I can hit Enter. If I want to change the size of the image after I've done this, I can go to Image and go to Canvas Size. And this will change the size of the canvas without changing the size of the image. So for example, if I make the width twice as big, if I do like 2048 for the width, now we see the image, we see more of the image than we did before. If I go to Image and go to Image Size, this is going to change both. So if I go to Pixels and I change this to 2048, it's going to scale the image as well as the canvas. Okay, so I can do both of those depending on which one I want to use. I can also crop. So if I click on this crop tool over here, or hit C on my keyboard, I can expand and it'll show me how much of the original image I can see in each direction if I want to make it wider or taller to change what I'm working with. So say I want to include a little bit more of that nice sunset, I might make it a little bit taller, I might crop in a little bit more on the surfer, but I don't want to get smaller than 1024. So I'll crop and then I'll go back to image, canvas size, and I can just set this back to 1024. And then the new height is 1253. It's kind of a random number. It's good to use even numbers because when Photoshop is like scaling things, it's probably going to want to divide things by 2. You might want to divide things by 2. So I could change this to like 1260 or something like that. It probably won't make a huge difference. And now I can see there's like a little space at the top of my image, so I can just make sure to select my layer, grab the move tool, or I can hit V on the keyboard and I can just move it up into that space, and I can move it over if I want to. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Looks good. So now I just want to add in my cat onto the surfboard. So I'm just going to quickly go over the masking stuff that we've already looked at a couple of times, just to review real quick. So I haven't saved actually, so this is a good thing to mention. I should have saved this like as soon as I started, but I forgot to. So you want to make sure to save your PSD. So I'm going to hit Command S to save it now. I can also go to File and just go to Save or Save As. But since I haven't saved it yet, if I hit Command S, that'll go to Save As. I haven't actually tried using the Creative Cloud. You could try it if you want. That might be nice because you can use it on different computers. I'm just going to save this on my computer because I'm not really sure how that works. And so that brings up this menu, and it's going to kind of choose a random folder for me. This is my old self-portrait folder. It probably just remembered that that's what I had open before. So I'm going to click on this little caret here to open the rest of this window and then find my project, my new one. So I'm going to go to the desktop, go to my project folder, go to self-portrait 2, and then I'll just name this one self-portrait2.psd and click Save and say OK. All right, so now I have it saved. I want to make sure that it's saved so I don't lose any work that I do. So now let's go ahead and add in our cat. So I'm going to grab this cat image and drag it on here. And so that looks pretty good. We want to scale it down a little bit and put it on the surfboard-ish. Okay, that looks pretty good. And so once I get it where I want, I can hit Enter. And I can make it smaller if I want to, but this looks good so far. I may want to, right now the cat is like looking kind of like over to the right. So maybe I want the cat to look at the surfer. So I could go to Image and go to Image Rotation and say Flip Horizontal. Oh, whoops, that's my whole image. That's not what I want to do. Let's see. Maybe I can go to Transform. Yeah, so I want to go to Transform and click Flip Horizontal. That will only affect my layer. Okay, so now I've got the cat looking in the direction I want. I might need it a little smaller, so I'm gonna bring it down a little bit, and then I can also rotate. So if I move my mouse out here, past these little white registration points, I can rotate a little bit. So maybe we want to rotate the cat in a little bit so it's closer to looking at the surfer. So I'll hit Enter. And I can always change these. I can always do more rotations or scaling or transformations if I need to. Oops. So now we're going to start our mask. So I'm going to try the object selection tool. So under my toolbar, I have these 3 options: the object selection tool, quick selection, and magic wand. So the object selection is Photoshop trying to figure out what you want to select, and it's going to try to pick out an object. And it's pretty accurate. You can see it's got most of the cat in there. So I'm going to click on that, and it's even more accurate when it does the actual selection. So that's pretty good. I'm gonna see how that looks. So I'm just gonna click on the mask button. And that's pretty good. I'm gonna zoom in a bit and, whoops, I'm gonna hold space to move around. And I'm gonna turn off my selection tool, my object selection tool, because it keeps doing stuff. And that actually looks pretty good. I think if I play with that selection a bit, I can get it looking pretty realistic. There is a little thing here that I don't know what that is, so let's take that out of our mask. So we can edit the mask. Remember, I can edit the mask as long as I have it selected here. So if I have the image selected and I take my brush and I try to draw, it's going to tell me I'm not allowed to do that. And I don't want to rasterize the smart object, so I'm going to click cancel. But if I go back to my layer and select the mask, if I then brush in here, it's actually letting me add to the mask a little bit. But I can't see the mask, so it's a little hard to edit that way. So if I want to see the mask, I can go to Channels, and my mask is all the way down here, and I can turn that on. And that's where I get this nice red overlay. So I can take my brush again, and I can add to the red area to remove this kind of, I don't know what that is. It's like part of the table that the cat's sitting on. But I can just brush out that part of the table. There's a little bit like right here that I also think is part of the table. So if I want to be super precise, I can get a smaller brush and go in here and bring that up a little bit. Depends on how realistic you want it to look. There's also a little edge over here that doesn't really match. So I'm just going to take that out a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm going to turn off that and come back here. I'm going to turn on my move tool and maybe move the cat over here. That looks pretty good. Zoom out a little bit. Okay. So, whoops. Okay, so I have to hold space to move it. Let's refine the mask just a little bit. So I'm going to click on the mask again. I'm going to right click and go to Select and Mask. And so make sure your transparency is all the way up to 100%. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this edge better. And I'm going to shift the edge in just a little bit, maybe 50%. And then I'm going to feather just a little bit, just a tiny amount. If I do a lot of feathering, it starts to look weird, but I just want a tiny amount. Maybe I'll shift the edge out and feather a little bit more. You can play with that until you get the look that you want. I still have a little bit of this like edge here. So I might want to add to the mask or try shifting. You could spend a lot of time kind of playing with this, but it doesn't have to look perfect. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to hit OK. So that's how we can add in our mask. So I'm just going to go over a couple more things. One thing that I didn't cover before is the type tool. And so if you want to add text into your self-portrait, you'll want to use the type tool. And it's a little tricky to use, so let's just go over it real quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the type tool into the image, and then I'm going to blend it in with the background. So I'm going to click on the type tool down here. And you also have like different types. So the regular type tool is going to do horizontal type, like what we're used to. But you also have a vertical type tool. You also have a mask type tool, but we can turn our type into a mask if we want to. So we don't need to use that. So I'm going to click. It's going to automatically add some text in here for me. And if I click on that text, I can write something else. So I can say surfing cat, or whatever you want to say. And then one thing that's tricky about text, if you're using key commands, so for example, if I want to switch to my move tool to move the text, I would usually hit V. But if I do that, it's just going to actually add it into my text. So you can either click on the move tool to get out of the text, or I can hit escape, and that will escape out of my text. And then I'll click on the V, and then I can move this down here. If I want to edit the text again, I can click on the type tool. Here's where it can be tricky. If I want to edit this text, but I click over here, it's going to add more text. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to hit undo. or I'm going to hit escape and then undo so I don't edit the text. And then if I click directly on the text, it's going to let me edit it. Another thing to be careful of is if I want to change this text, I can't just go up to the toolbar and start making changes. It's only going to affect the text that's selected. So for example, if I select the cat and I go up here and I choose a new font like typewriter, see, it only changes the part that I have selected. So you want to make sure that your text is selected before you make changes. So I'm going to select the whole thing, and then I'm going to choose a different font. You can see little previews of all the fonts, and if you hover over it, it'll show you what it looks like. Although I can't see it right now because it's on top of it. But let's choose something kind of cool. Maybe let's see. I don't have, these are just like the default options for fonts. You can download more fonts if you want to use them. Let's see. I kind of like this like chalk one, but I feel like that's gonna be weird when we add in our filter. So let's not do that one. Let's see, what does that one look like? That's pretty cool. That kind of matches our surfing vibe. So I'll go with this script font. If I want to make it bigger, I still have to select the whole thing. I can go to the type tool and choose a point size, or I can move this back and forward to make it bigger. So let's make it as big as our window. So I'm going to move this over here and then choose the type tool again, select the type, and then just move it until it matches the window. And that looks pretty good. Okay. So now what I want to do is blend this in with the background. And there's a couple different ways we can do that. So I can easily go to the blend modes and just go through different blend modes. And this will blend it in with our background. And some of them look okay, but it's not exactly what I want. So another thing that I can do is I can make a mask for the background. So what I can do, and this is a good thing to be aware of, if I hold Command and hover over here, I can select the contents of my layer. And so if that's text, I can make this selection. So now I have this little selection that matches the text, and then I can apply that to another layer. So I could go down to my beach here, and I could click on the mask here and get that mask. I don't want to do that to the actual beach. So let's undo that, and I'm just going to duplicate my beach layer. Okay, and oh, where'd my mask go? I'll just get it back, so I'll just click on this, go back to my beach layer. Oh, for some reason, oh, it already applied? I don't know what happened there. Okay, let's delete this. Okay, let's duplicate the beach layer again. Okay, so now I'm gonna get that selection again. So I just hit Command and click on the layer I want the selection for. Then I'm gonna hide the text. Now I'm gonna mask this beach part, but then I can add like a filter or something. So let's do an invert. So I'll go filter. Let's see. Okay, I want to look for invert adjustments, invert. Okay. Oh, that inverted the colors. It's not exactly what I want to do. So let's do an adjustment, actually. So there's my adjustments. I'm going to do a gradient map. I really like in gradient. Oh, I could also do an invert. Okay, there. But I really like the gradient map. I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with this that's cool. So I'm going to add in the gradient map. You see I get this like black and white version of my beach. And then I can apply the mask here instead. Let's see, can I actually, oops. Okay, there we go. So now I have the gradient map with my text, but it's a filter over, or it's an adjustment over this copy of the beach I have. Actually, I don't even need it to be a copy of the beach anymore. So yeah, I don't actually need that copy, but I can leave it there. And so now I can go back to my adjustments and click on here. Oh, I have to click on my gradient filter. go to my gradient map, and now I can change this. So I can click on the color and choose a different color, something darker, and then choose this color. And then I can kind of move in between these two. So I can choose different colors there. Although it looks kind of opaque. Let's turn this off for a second. I wonder if that's the colors that I chose. I do something darker. Let's go back. So I'm going to go to my history. Okay, so this is where it was looking good when I had this gradient here. So let's see. Okay, so if I change the color here, maybe I can grab something out of here. Okay, that looks kind of cool. Okay, so that looks kind of cool. I can play around with that. I don't want to take too much more time with it. But now we can see I'm blending the text into that background. And I can add different effects and different adjustments and stuff like that just based on my text. So I'm not actually drawing the text anymore. I'm just drawing this mask that's based on the text. So that's how I can do, different types of effects. And it doesn't have to be text. Obviously, I can do that with shapes or anything else that I might want to use. Whoops. But that's how you'll get a lot of different effects that you'll see in, ads or images online, where things are kind of like blended in together. Okay, so I think I've covered all the basics. I'm just going to quickly export this and post it on Discord, because that's what we're going to do at the end of class, just to kind of show our progress. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to export a Jpeg so that it'll be a relatively small file size for when I post it on Discord. So I'm going to go to File and go to Export As. And I've got Jpeg. That looks pretty good. It's actually really small. It's only 97 kilobytes, so I could actually try even like very good or excellent. That's pretty good. I don't want to go too much higher than 300. Although it really depends on the context. There's some cases where you want to have really high resolution. This looks pretty good. So I'm going to click Export and go to my Self-Portrait 2. And I'll call this Self-Portrait 2. That's fine. I could say First Draft. So I'm going to make a couple different versions of this and click Save. And so now I want to post this on Discord to share. So it's pretty easy to do that. I have my JPEG right here. And I want to go over to Discord here. And so when I'm ready to share my progress, I can just put it on here and say, here's my self-portrait draft. And there we go. Now people can see it. If people like it, they can, say good job, or people can create a thread, I guess. Can't you? I thought you could. Maybe I can't reply to my own image. I think you can reply to other people's stuff. Anyway, that's what we're going to do at the end of class. So we're going to use the next 50-ish minutes for you guys to just work on whatever you're working on. And then at the end of class, we'll all post what we've got so far on Discord so we can take a look. It doesn't have to be finished, but just wherever you get to by the end of class, you can export a file and post it on Discord so we can just see everybody's progress. All right? Any questions? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'll take a look. All right.